Arian Foster, an NFL running back, was in the same position that student athletes are in today. Paying for his dorm, his food, and if he even got to eat that day, and not being able to go out with his friends because he didn't have the money to. These student athletes are putting over 40 hours of drilling practice and helping their athletic program, and still no pay. These athletes are not trying for jobs because of all the hours of practices and games. Imagine you're so tired after practice, and you are really hungry, but you can't get something to eat because you don't have a job to earn money, and you dedicate all of your time to your sport. This is what athletes are going through today, and it needs to stop, and paying athletes would solve these problems.
Kelvin, we're going to let main arguments go, and then we'll do your own, okay?
College is very expensive, and students have to pay for housing, books, meal plans, and all financial aid. On average, a college student spends around $12,500 per year for housing, books, transportation, and other fees. But for a D1 college such as Iowa State, the expenses can add up to around $20,000. If a student is paying this much money for 1 year in college and they have committed themselves to sport, they will not have nearly enough time to get the money to pay for all these needed supplies such as food, housing, and so on.
Sports are time consuming and athletes don't have time for jobs. College athletes put in more than 40 hours of hard and grueling practices. Also, the athletes' efforts lead to almost $11 billion in revenue for the March Madness tournament. That money could be used to give to the college athletes. In practices and games, athletes can get lifelong injuries that their parents would have to pay for surgeries, and in return that takes money out of their parents' paychecks. And these colleges do nothing to compensate for them. This proves that the NCAA could be paying for athletes with all the revenue they take in from the March Madness tourney and other things. Also, they do not have time for jobs because of all the time they put into practices and games. And if the NCAA gave some of the money that they get from revenue to the athletes, they would not have trouble paying for financial aid.
Anthony Davis got a 6-year, $145 million contract and is still a top player in the NBA. Kobe Bryant, Chris Paul, and Clayton Kershaw are paid heavily and are still the leader of their teams. Cody Kessler, quarterback at USC, will have a good career in the NFL and has endorsements that pay huge amounts of money and is still among the small percentage of athletes that go pro, and only about 2% of college football players go pro. This shows that the money does not affect the big-time pros, even if it is the biggest contract in NBA history in Anthony Davis, and all the endorsements that come with being a college athlete and a pro athlete does not affect their play. The money that the athletes will earn would affect their play the same way it does the pros. It wouldn't affect them at all. They love their sport too much to throw that away.
College athletes should not be paid to play sport. Why should someone be paid for something when they are already getting a free scholarship? We think that college athletes should not be paid to play sport. Most student athletes already have free scholarship of some kind, so we do not need to pay them because they are already benefiting. If we could pay the student athlete, then the money used to pay them will be taken away from the academic side of the college. Some schools have more money than others, so they could pay the athlete more. This could be an unfair advantage and make athletes want to go to the bigger school.
Most student athletes are already on scholarship, so by paying them, scholarships wouldn't mean as much anymore, and that would mess up the whole recruiting process. Joel Mendelson from the independent Florida Alligator, the University of Florida School and Newspaper, says for the privilege of being a student athlete, students get full scholarships to some of the country's best public and private universities and are able to achieve a level of education they otherwise may not be able to attain without a scholarship. So if we pay athletes, scholarships wouldn't be as important, so recruiting would have to be changed and education wouldn't seem as vital because the athletes already have money in their pockets. Joe Mendelson also says, is it wrong that the NCAA, conferences, and schools profit on the backs of these athletes? Perhaps it is, but the scholarships and opportunities presented to the students cannot be discounted. Scholarships are just too important in the college process to let them go and pay the athletes instead. Our second argument is, another reason showing that we are right is paying the athletes would take money away that could go towards the school, which would affect non-athletes like students and faculty in a negative way. Adele Berkness and Nikesh Bagaria, authors of the article Pay to Play, Should College Athletes Be Paid, say finally paying college athletes would take away money that could come from college budgets and could be used to invest in research to hire better staff or to renovate facilities and technology. By paying the athletes, it takes away money that could go towards people that have nothing to do with the athletes, like students, professors, and other people that work for the college/university. Our final argument to drive home our claim is some schools have more money than others, so they would have to pay the athletes more, which would be an unfair advantage and make athletes want to go to the bigger schools more than they already do. John E. Hoover, who wrote Should Players Punch In, says, just because those big schools have the money to be able to do it, they can find ways to do it. But here at Tulsa, the small schools, even intermediate schools, they're losing money every day. Most student athletes would go to the big schools to begin with, so by paying the athletes, it's just adding fuel to the fire because the big schools already have a bunch of money, so now more athletes are going to want to go to the big schools, leaving the smaller schools like Tulsa out to try. Johnny Hoover also says, for an athletic department that returns every dollar of revenue back to its expenditures and operates with zero profit, that's a problem. Smaller schools can hardly pay their normal amounts, so if college athletes are paid, they'll actually lose money. So in conclusion, college athletes should not be paid.
All right, that was all your main arguments? Perfect. A minute to rebuttal? Okay. Affirmative rebuttal?
Sometimes, scholarships are not enough to support the player. They might still have to pay for other things. And most of you may be wondering who's going to pay for it. You could take some money out of the coach's paycheck. Some coaches make up to $3 million per year, and the NCAA only spends 4% on staff salaries and administrative expenses.
These athletes also give their schools a larger benefit from their efforts on and off the field than the athlete would from his or her education from the proud university.
My opponent may say that athletes not have enough time to work a job on campus, so therefore they will not be able to pay for college. But athletes are receiving many different benefits. For one, athletes are being provided by an NCAA provider, which provides health insurance for their 4 years of college. Also, the athletes receive many different discounts on campus. So if you were to add up all of the things that they are receiving, it is more than a part-time job on campus.
These student athletes still have to pay for food, books, housing, and financial aid, and not all scholarships cover that. In order to pay for those things, you need money, but you can't get money without a job. And these student athletes don't have time for jobs. And athletes would be more motivated to do better if they got a weekly pay based on how well they perform on the field. I don't know how these athletes are supposed to eat when they're not with the team, when they don't have money to buy anything. How are you supposed to perform well when you don't have energy? How are you supposed to do well in school when you focus all of your free time, which is over 40 plus hours a week, on your sport and representing your university? Imagine winning a national championship that you put your heart and soul into, and you put your college on the map as a top 3 recruiting class, but you still don't get paid.
Student athletes should not get paid. Most college athletes are already on scholarship, so by paying them, scholarships wouldn't mean as much anymore, and that would mess up the whole recruiting process. Another reason college athletes should not get paid is that by paying the athletes, it would take away the money that could go towards the school. That could go towards the school, which could upset and affect non-athletes, like students and faculty in a negative way. Some universities or colleges make more money than others, so by paying them will bring unfair advantage to the Ohio and Alabama states. Since they have more money than other colleges and universities, they're able to pay the athletes more money, which makes players want to go there more than they already do. So if college athletes want to get paid, they better be good enough to make it into the pros.